Righty up, everybody ready to go? We'll get into this. Welcome to the Regulatory Committee for this today. We've got 3 apologies so far. Councillor Cook, Councillor Gibson and Councillor Crichton. I don't know if any mover and seconder. And Peter. Peter, can we sort this? All in favour, say aye. Against, carried. There's no declaration of interest, no public forums that I know of. We'll move into the confirmation of minutes. Someone said I move those if they were active. I don't think so.
No, it's mine. It'll be definitely mine. Instead of one that sounds.
Can I have a motion for the minutes that they're accurate? And second. Not that I know of. We'll move into the item 9 reports. 9.1. You taken this way? Paul?
Yeah, I have just asked Lacey to come.
Appointment of the independent commissioner.
Can we back up and I'll declare a declaration of interest that I'm one of the joint chairs of that trust.
Okay.
Tried to do that yesterday, but it was a day early.
We'll duly note that. All good. So, welcome. Let's see if you can lead this, it'd be great.
Kia ora koutou, for those who I haven't met. Lacey Bragg Tokanga. I've taken over the consent secretary role in September. So this report, Mr. Chairman, hopefully it is somewhat self-explanatory. Purpose of the report is utilising our recently adopted process to appoint an independent commissioner to decide an application for us on the papers. The application itself is from Whakamuta Te Waituna Charitable Trust, as Mr. Horrell pointed out. We are a party to that trust, Southern Regional Council, and it is proposed that the activity occur on land owned and administered by Southern Regional Council. Therefore, we recommend that an independent commissioner is appointed to determine the application and that person be Jane McDonald.
Okay, is there any questions associated with that?
Perhaps a point of clarification, as part of the work program, we have one of our partners is Robbie Waters, which is Fonterra and Dock. So the woodland is something that's been funded by the sort of a proof of concept type of situation. So hence the need for a consent, which fortunately appears to be non-notified. Obviously everybody's neighbours are happy with it, but yeah, there's just if there's any other questions I can probably answer them.
Anybody?
Thanks, Jimmy. Just wanted to clarify that Jane's Queenstown based. Is that right? Yep. So travel miles are not hideous.
Sorry.
Travel miles would not be hideous.
We won't be having a hearing ideally, so
Yeah,
providing that so it will be supposed to be decided on the papers.
Okay. Everybody happy with that?
Yeah, I'd like to move that, Mr. Chairman.
Move that 1, 2 and 3 there. Okay, can I second that, Peter? Any other discussion? All in favour, say aye. Against, carry. Thank you.
Lacey might as well stay.
Again, Lacey, it's yours. Consents division report.
you, Mr. Chair. So through you, Mr. Chair, there is quite a bit going on in the consent supervision space. A lot of moving parts with updated regulation, etc., which is noted in the report about the recent repeal of the NDEA by end in December, being that this is for the period October to through to December, and there's been recent announcements, I suppose, from government around fast track consenting bills, etc. So consents are wanting to keep abreast of the direction that that is moving in. I'm happy to take any questions if there is any on any of the matters in the report.
Mark,
Thank you. Yes, Lacey, two questions. One relates to the marine farm coastal permits. What steps do these marine farms, and thinking of salmon farms in particular, take to reduce the loss of effluent from their farms? I know in the past there's been a lot of effluent collected underneath the farms. That's been a problem, but must be some emanating from it as well. Is that treated at all, or is it just allowed to go out into the environment for it to be dispersed in the ocean?
With the current consents that do exist, there is improvements that we've identified before these ones are proposed to be replaced with regard to monitoring of locations, and in particular the stringency of the monitoring going forward. A lot of these are, as it says, as you will know, located within Victoria Bay, and so I wouldn't say that there is specifics currently on the consents that were granted in 2004. With regard to treatment, it is going to be an interesting exercise in replacing these consents now that we have the National Environmental Standards for Marine Aquaculture and the bounds in which we will work with that piece of legislation with replacing the farms.
So do those standards require the treatment of waste, or
I would have to get back to you on that. I can't quite recall. We actually haven't had to utilise the marine aquaculture environmental standards yet, given that these are not coming up until 1st of January 2025.
Probably the main mitigation at the moment is moving around. They'll have an area that you move around so that you're not in the same place all the time. And the agency will argue they are much more accurate in the amount of feed they put in there now, so that they should minimise the waste. But every time a consent comes up, there's always room for other conditions.
right? So the conditions could be that they are only allowed to emanate a certain amount of concentration. Stuff like that. The other one, what's the details of the New Zealand Animal Law Association appeal on the dairy consent? Will be public information, I suppose, is it?
The appeal itself, so the appeal is predominantly related to the intensive winter grazing component of the application. So with that application, there is two parts to that, which is extension of the dairy platform and the proposed intensive winter grazing activity, because the area to be intensively winter graze is combined, it triggers a consent.
Yeah.
So the appeal directly relates to the conditions that were imposed by the independent commissioner at the end of the day. The Animal Law Association do not consider that they appropriately avoid, remedy or mitigate the adverse effects on the cattle themselves. And so that is the main point of the appeal.
Right. So that's an animal welfare issue rather than an environmental issue.
It's
Yeah.
their appeal.
All right, thank you.
Peter. Okay, Mr.
perceived animal welfare issue. A perceived animal welfare issue. It hasn't been established, but anything other than them declaring their view on the matter.
So the view is that the particular effects should be considered under the Resource Management Act.
Oh, so it's a legal argument, is it? Yeah.
Right, Peter.
Yeah, Lacey, I'm just looking here at Ngaitahu Seafoods, Ananui Aquaculture, and that was declined with the through the EPA. It was through the fast track process, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I see that we've got an appeal lodged with others around that decision. Does the new government have any, with their wishes to open up these processes and get things going, do they have a pathway to retrospectively look at that application again through the fast track process?
I'm not aware there is an ability to retrospectively look at previously defined proposals. The only thing I am aware of is probably much the same as everyone else, is the mention of aquaculture being a focus of the government's proposed bill going forward that will be in the House in March. We don't have any certainty around that just yet.
So that proposal could be revisited in the future once legislation is passed.
They would be
I'm
able
just
to.
thinking out loud here.
They will be able to, anything that's previously been declined will be able to go through a new process should it fit.
Thank you.
I just thought I see the Pahi Berries one was submitted. Their application was approved. Is it the same? Is it the animal group again?
That is the Animal Association.
Question, and that might be one of those. Any indication of when the Department of Conservation is going to sign off or not the PC5 change?
I'm not aware, sorry.
Just one of those many things on their list of things.
I just one comment was I just heard on the radio the Corweera Downs are the big turbines. They're starting the next stage. I was just a question around that. I know this. I think they've got consent for about 75. Is it 75 turbines? Is it something like that?
Yeah.
I just wonder, is that how long is that? Like they can just keep on. They've got the consent and they just keep on building over that period of time. Bruce, do you know much? Or just around that?
It's coverage in the South Times on this morning, particularly if you information, you probably saw that.
Yeah.
That's probably what drove you.
I just
But
I'm interested.
interesting, when you get a land use consent from a territorial authority, unlike a discharge consent, which has been for 35 years, a land use consent has an unlimited term from the district council unless it's otherwise specified. So the opposition is your land use consent continues on. But they still need consent from Ryan Southern, and they have been liaising regularly with us more recently on obtaining the necessary consent they need to for our components of the project.
We have an current application for stage 2, which involves.
So do they have to apply for each stage? Yes, is that?
That's how they, I think that's how they had set it up in the bid process. Yeah, we've got a current application.
Sorry, just to that, you might recall previously the original consents were granted to another company back in the 2001-2010 period. So the consents, the ES consents granted at that stage have reached their expiry time, so they're now going through applying for new consents and making a few changes along the lines.
Thanks for clarifying that, Morris. Paul, do you want?
No.
Yeah, following on from Peter's question about Hanganui. I see that, Ryan Southern has joined the appeal. What's the basis of that decision to join?
That is an interesting question.
I think maybe Bruce could speak to that. Would be helpful, Bruce.
That would be,
As interested parties.
sorry, definitely one of Leslie's comments here, just had some involvement in the appeal process. Obviously, when Tahu Seafood received the decision, they still want to progress their project, so they've appealed to the High Court, and we had an opportunity to join that action. We've lodged a notice just to preserve our position really at this point in time, so that we can be a participant to the process, as have a number of other parties. So we probably don't want to talk too much about our legal strategy around that at the moment. Ngāi Tahu Seafood's appeal is publicly available online, and I can send you the links if you're interested to all the relevant documents there. Their appeal, notice of appeal, which raises, I think, from memory, 12 points. And I know some of them, but I probably won't go into too much detail on that. But it raises a number of legal points around the decision that has been made, where they feel that there's some errors that have been made, primarily in law. And we've lodged a notice when we had a fairly narrow window of opportunity to do that, to effectively preserve our position to participate in the process if we choose to do so. And a number of other parties have done the same. So I can see probably the easiest way, bearing in mind it's sort of before the court at the moment, we've got to be careful what we say publicly. I could send you the link to those documents.
Thanks.
Probably just further to that, because it was a fast track process, appeals can only be on points of law. So that's the situation that they're at the moment.
Just to clarify, we're not necessarily supporting them yet, it's just to be involved as interested parties. Is that the way
we
we?
need to form a strategy on how we want to approach that.
Yeah, but we haven't done that. It's just saying when someone appeal, we're an interested
There's been some
party.
dialogue, but we haven't got a stated public position at this point in time. It's just preserving our ability to participate.
To be involved.
And obviously we need to have some further dialogue around the extent of our involvement and what position we may choose to take. There's a number of matters raised in that appeal, and a number of them have linkages to other streams of our organisation, so we need to be pretty circumspect about what we want to present on or not present on.
Right, I think is everybody done. Can I move?
Happy to move, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Horrell, seconder Morris. All in favour, say aye. Carry. Thanks, Les. 3, Resource Management Team report. Welcome, Donna.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll table the report as read through you, Mr. Chair, and give you a couple of quick updates since the writing of the report. On page 16, I've commented on winter grazing. I'd like to highlight that once again, this is an organisational approach to winter grazing and the year-round approach that we have. We're just waiting for the finalisation of that program so that we can link in to all the good work that's being currently done by the catchment integration team. On page 17, I've commented on the notification times for the farm inspections. We have had positive and negative feedback to the change in that, which is actually an increase of notification, not a decrease. We've set aside some time in March as a team to review that feedback, and we'll report back to the regulatory committee on all that then. The Dairy Top Performer program. So quality assurance checks were to be underway currently, however they've been delayed due to the large incident which we're currently responding to, so they're going to be a little later than planned. And since the writing of the report, we've had 100% return rate for all the people who were eligible and chose to participate, so that was a good success rate this year. On page 18, I've commented on the joint agency Fiordland compliance control trip that we went on, and I've mentioned some of the non-compliances. At the time, we had to confirm what they were, so I couldn't put them in the written report, but I can now confirm that the majority of them were around no identification on moorings or structures, which is a consent condition, and a lot of non-supply of reports, which are required by the consents, and an example of that would be a structural report by a certified person. And finally, I just wanted to comment on the gravel monitoring. We've had overwhelmingly a positive response recently from the gravel monitoring. We are continuing to find some non-compliances, but everyone that we're working with has so far worked really well with the monitoring officers and are increasing their compliance ratings.
And Donna, it's probably just worth reminding that that is a new activity for compliance to get on top of gravel.
So we picked up the gravel monitoring in April last year, and we've got a strategic program to get everything up to date within 2 full seasons. So we're not quite halfway through that strategic plan at this stage. Do any questions?
One to start off, then Nicole, just in regards to the winter grazing, obviously we have the new LiDAR tool in regards to slope degrees and things like that, and I just wanted to make a mistake. That's a really good tool and very accurate and gives farmers the ability to, it takes the guesswork out of what the paddocks look like. So I'm just saying, I don't know how if we're selling that out there, but we certainly encourage. It's going to take a lot of thought process out of it, really.
And we, in response to that, we did actually use some of that data to test how we can use that last year. And it was really good when we had some customer complaints come through a pollution line. We're actually able to check that the slope wasn't actually an issue, and then we would ground truth that later for ourselves. So it's actually very helpful data.
It's very effective. Nicole?
On the bylaw, can they temporarily have gravel there, or is there a time frame before it has to move, or does it have to move as immediately as they?
Offer a bylaw exemption. They have to apply to our catchment operation team for bylaw exemption to store anything within the floodplain. So we are finding quite a bit, but some of that is historical and people weren't aware that they could apply for a bylaw exemption. So we're assisting them through that process.
Actually, just in regards to that bylaw, I'm sorry, nothing that again. Obviously, there's been a few talks about bailage and things, especially up in the Gore area. I take it that it's been looked at and things that we need to reinforce that farmers shouldn't be storing stuff. And anything within it can be
That's
moved.
correct. So nothing should be stored there without an exemption. So we often get calls, especially during the winter period, with bailage in the floodplains, and we do report those to our catchment operation team, and they respond to those.
That's good. Peter?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions. Talked about gravel monitoring. That's a new task for your department. Have you got full links back to the catchment team?
Yes, we
and
do.
other teams? So you're fully communicating there?
Yeah, so we're backing off with the relationships that team already has with that operator, and a number of them are very complex sites. So where they are, we're working really closely with them.
That's very good. And just another question around winter grazing here. At this stage, we expect the work program will be the same. That's a good comment. There's quite a lot of talk around the new government coming in and people starting to throw intensive winter grazing into the mix of things that are up for change. I'm a bit worried about that discussion going around the world 3 times, if you know what I mean. I think this council has to reiterate that that's something for us in Southland, and that we've got to keep on that improvement, that plane of improvement that we've been on for 5 years. We just can't let that go. So I think that's really important. Maybe some preemptive communications from the council moving in right now and into winter. I think it's really important. The other thing too is education. As always, we'll be taking the education first approach. When do we get to a point that we stop taking an education first approach and start taking an enforcement approach? That's a big question. I know when you start a program, you front load it, 90% education, but over a period of time, you have to start changing those percentages, because as it stands now, a lot of farmers are really concerned around protecting the practice of winter grazing in Southland. And I'm getting told by people they want to see more prosecutions, basically. No one likes that, of course, but they're really concerned around protecting that practice. So it's just something for the council to think about as we go through this, and we've been on this road for quite some time, is that shifting that percentage of education into the end of enforcement more and more. I'm not saying not do education, of course, very vital that we do,
Chair. So as part of our monitoring and our enforcement policies, we have some of that laid out, and I'm more than happy to workshop it with the council if you'd like to do that. It's often very case by case. So some people have changed their land use types and all sorts of things. So they've got new sets of rules to come up to grips with. So a very experienced person, a small shift, we give them the benefit of the doubt where we possibly can, but it's always reliable on whether or not there's been environmental impacts. So if there's an environmental impact, that's often a very, very different game.
Eric.
Yeah, on page 19, under their inspections, you've got 4 significant non-compliance. And first question is, how does that happen? Is that recalcitrance, ignorance, act of God, accident, or whatever? And what actions do we actually take on those worst performers?
So a significant non-compliance can be any of the above. So it can be a malfunction of machinery, it could be a new staff person, it could just be something went wrong on the day, or they took a phone call and something overflowed. So all of those ingredients are taken into account with a significant non-compliance. And it varies, so we always start with a re-inspection to give people an opportunity
Right.
to go, and it gives us an opportunity to go back and make sure things are okay before we head away again and don't come back for a number of months. Some of those significant non-compliance historically do lead through to further enforcement actions of varying degrees depending on the environmental impact.
And recidivism, are they the same people each time or new people? Or
Oh, no frequent flyers on that list.
Okay,
They're all
thank you.
variable.
I did just follow on from that, the intensive winter grazing conversation. It might have sounded like we're only education is to the start of the winter, and then Donna's team more, and are people complying? And there is questions there at the field days, the questions put to Penny Simmons when I was in the Federated Farmers meeting, and saying, what about winter grazing? Are you going to get rid of the government rule? And she looked at me and I said, well, even if they do, our own water and land plan rules will prevail. You know what's in them. There's not going to be nothing, because we have a plan. If the NES changes, that's fine, but we'll still have our own rules. And the slope is probably the only thing that's really different to the NES.
Yeah, and I think I was just going to add, I think the education is hugely important, but I think that what we're doing is in compliance flyovers and talking to people before. I think we've got a really quite a great system, and certainly what we are seeing from South and Sand reports back is there's certainly a change, has been a huge uptake of good management practices, and that's what we want to see. And I know I know Federated Farmers are all very much not stand beside someone who's doing bad management practices. So there certainly is still pretty full-on focus on good outcomes. So I don't think, I think we're doing a good job, really good job on how we're dealing with it.
Under the fine balance that we needed.
We can't deal with government rules coming from high above, a few spinners and words. Okay, sorry, Maurice.
Just got one that's sort of related to that on page 20 under the enforcement outcomes. This is exactly what I managed to happen in this case. A cultivated critical source area and excessive sediment loss resulted in an infringement notice. So the questions are, how was this detected, and what was can you describe what happened, and what was the infringement?
So I can come back to you on the exact details for that particular file. There's a number that come across the desk, and I'd hate to give you the wrong information, but happy to feedback exactly on that. And it could have been identified during a monitoring event, or it could have been called in from a member of the public. So I can do those for you.
All right, thanks. All good. No more questions. It's all good. Can I have a mover and seconder for that? Peter's moved. Morris, you're seconded. All in favour, say aye. Aye. Yes, carried. 9.4.
Donna,
Dana, your name's on the A group program update, please.
Would you like me just to introduce it and then we can go on? So we've had the group programme update. This is probably a year now, or maybe just a little bit less. What we're attempting to do is give you a view of some of the additional pieces of work that we'll bring towards the committee over the year. So we trialled it last year. Obviously, it's got a regulatory component to it. So I wondered, Donna, if you could take, and if you can provide some clarification, potential of when we'll be reviewing the regulatory framework again as well. I don't know if you've got the dates, but if you could take us through the calendar, that would be quite helpful.
So at this stage, we don't have a date for taking you through that framework. We're just working on that. Permitted act, sorry, I don't actually have a printed copy in front of me. But,
Page 24, Donna.
So each regulatory committee will provide agenda items from all of the teams which provide enforcement outcomes. And so that's the first part on there. The framework, we've still got a date to come, but we will workshop something with you in that one. Our presentation of the annual compliance monitoring report for the financial year. We're aiming to present that to the committee in November this year, the same as we did last year. And that's the annual report of all the activities that are undertaken by the compliance team. We will look to seek for endorsement of the annual compliance monitoring enforcement priorities for 23-24 when we workshop on the 17th of April, similar to what we did last year. And finally, we talk about our annual national reporting. So that's to the Compliance and Enforcement Special Interest Group, which I'm part of as the manager. And we produce an annual report as well as feeding into the national monitoring standards for the Ministry for the Environment. And those dates start around 1st of July each year, finish with the end of the financial year. And because the reports are external, we don't have exact dates when they come in, but as soon as they do, we will feed them through.
And councillors, there is an opportunity for you to use this committee, that if there is any papers or topics that you'd like us to go away and bring back information on in a regulatory context, you can also use this part of the meeting to do that as well. So we could go away and provide you with some updates or clarification.
Okay. Cool. Any questions? Keep and talk. I'll ask someone to move that. Recommend that.
Have to move, Chairman.
And Nicola moves. Peter seconded. All in favour say aye. Against, carried. Right. Biosecurity regulatory report. Ellie, but
Yeah,
is Ellie on?
I'm just wondering if Ali's online. It doesn't look it. I can't.
She's an apology.
Okay, well,
Looks like it's you.
Chair, it's me. And so I will hopefully say this. I take the paper as read, councillors. But the purpose of this is to bring to the council a culmination of the different regulatory actions that the biosecurity team have taken, and I'll just turn your attention to the table and some of the exemptions that have been progressed. I'll just let you look at that. I will also point your attention to some of the pest animal work that we've done on the compliance activities on page 26. And also you've got information around the Donna referred to in the previous meeting, the joint agency compliance control, and some of the inspections and outcomes on page 27. I'll leave it at that. Hopefully sufficient information to council, and if there is any questions, I'll try to answer them. If not, I'll come back to you with the.
All good. Thank you, Paul. Is there any questions?
Just, Mr. Chairman, just go over the biosecurity exemption activities.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand it. So if they've got an exemption, there's lots there for rabbits. What does that mean?
So rabbits is that relates to Southland Pest Society, and under the regional pest management plan. For the majority of Southland, it's landowner responsibility, but in that particular area, there's a community response where they're rated specifically for it. So effectively, they are exempted from having landowner responsibility to manage the rabbits, and it's done in a coordinated way through a contract. So I think that's the best explanation of that.
383.
So there's 383 landowners that are exempted as a result. Yeah,
And the one for Underia, are they for Underia farming?
I believe so. Yes.
And Spartina, Spartina?
Get Wallaby in the system too, is it?
Yeah, I was just gonna
Why
say.
would somebody want an exemption for Spartina?
Wallaby, sorry, an exemption from.
Spartina and Contorta pine, why would somebody want an exemption for one of those?
It's a very good question, and I will take it away and bring it back to you, Councillor Rodway. I don't know if there's some sort of trial going on. Certainly with the Wallaby one, I think that relates to, haven't we got Wallabies in
Queen's Park.
Queen's Park, and they would need an exemption. Yeah.
City folk again.
It's like the Bengal cats.
They all have bells.
Need a name tag in them.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
I will definitely bring back the contact of Barnwell.
Thanks, Paul.
Is there any other questions? No? Be quiet. Someone can move that report. Receive that report.
Happy to do that.
And Morris seconded. All in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. And by the looks of it, we'll wrap things up from there. Thank you very much for the participation. Thank you. Very good.
I'm on this committee.
And we'll get offline.